Ernie Jr., my first child, was born. And of course, West Coast World Martial Arts was going to be part of his family and a big part of his life. It was the best way, I thought. It would help me raise my child as a single parent. Quanjin Marge, Donna Scott, George had a big impact in giving Ernie Jr. that family love when he was a kid, along with Grandpa Quanjin Tony. Who would ever think that as soon as he was out of those diapers, I would put him into a karate uniform and he would love to train. He slept in that uniform like pajamas. I trained Ernie Jr., him being the youngest, 6 and 7 years old, just like all my senior black belts, giving him no slack, and he hung in there like a little warrior. Eventually, making martial arts history of being the youngest child ever to be rated in adults forms division. This eventually led Ernie Jr. and I to Hollywood with our demo team members to do movies and television. Our first movie was the classic Last Dragon, produced by Motown, starring Timac and Vanity and some of our demonstration team members. It took a tremendous amount of sacrifice to break into Hollywood. Then, when Ernie Jr. got the part, we got down on our knees and thanked the Lord. Then we met the living legend of soul himself, Motown's Berry Gordy. Our next movie, Red Sonja, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Bridget Nelson. I can remember we were in Italy for 3 months, filming, and Arnold invited us to his room to see the first Terminator on video before the movie even came out. Arnold would work out every night after filming 10 hours, and Ernie Jr. and I were right there with him in the gym. Arnold was a very compassionate and caring person. Our next project was a television premiere on ABC, The Last Electric Night, with Gil Gerard, a Walt Disney and Motown production. This led us into a primetime ABC TV series called Sidekicks. Then there was the first Ninja Turtles, where Ernie Jr. played Donatello. The stunt coordinator was a friend of ours. His name was Pat Johnson, a Chuck Norris black belt. Ernie Jr. almost had heat exhaustion daily doing all those fight scenes in that first cumbersome costume. It was heavy and had no ventilation. My other son, Lee Reyes, starred in American Ninja 5 with David Bradley and Pat Morita, star of The Karate Kid. Both Ernie Jr. and Lee Reyes starred in another movie called The Secret of the Horse. Ernie Jr., myself, Rob Snyder, Wesley Nielsen, and Tone Loc starred in Surf Ninjas with many of our West Coast team members. We filmed in Los Angeles and in majestic places of Thailand. Surf Ninjas was an inspiring movie of what honor, loyalty, family, and bravery of a dynasty truly means. Ernie Jr. did a movie called The Rundown with Dwayne Johnson, known as The Rock. Ernie Jr. got to demonstrate his masterful martial arts skills, beating up The Rock. And it also gave him an opportunity to showcase his acting skills, having to speak in Portuguese for his entire role. The Rock is one of the most kind and humblest actors in Hollywood. Red Canvas was written for Ernie Jr. and I. We were the main stars. Back then, Ernie Jr. was demonstrating fighting skills that they didn't do back in the early days of MMA fighting. Now they're doing them. Our demo team, many of our black belts, and our martial arts friends, Gray Maynard, Frank Shamrock, Bob Cook, Santini, and even Quantum Tony played a starring role as the head referee. Red Canvas was an MMA fight movie that focused on a family fighting to unite as a force of one. During our WCWMA martial arts journey, we've had the opportunity to meet many world-renowned celebrities. Hall of Famer 49ers Ronnie Lott, World Champion Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali with Ernie Reyes Jr., legendary Hall of Famer football player Herschel Walker, Hall of Famer and legend Jerry Rice, 49ers quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo, and legendary San Francisco Taiko Sensei Tanaka, 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan, Benny Urquidez, world champion, and Centuries Martial Arts Mike Dillard. Star and actor Charleston Heston, American Bandstand's Dick Clark, Janet Jackson, the late legendary boxing coach Emmanuel Stewart with world champion Aaron Pryor, Jack LaLanne and Bart Conner, Olympic gold medalist. The legendary Jack LaLanne was Quantum Ernie's hero. He was the pioneer of health and fitness. World champion Daniel Cormier, UFC Coach of the Year Javier Mendez, world champions Andre Ward, Mike Swain, legendary Freddie Roach, world champion Ronda Rousey, world champion Gino Carano, world famous Bellator president Scott Coker, world-class coach Bob Cook, legendary Fedor Emelianenko, famous and world champion Cyborg, and the legendary Hoist Gracie, Motown's Berry Gordy, Chris O'Donnell of NCIS, Gil Gerard of Sidekicks, Chuck Norris, Dwayne Johnson The Rock, Don Cheadle, Steven Seagal, Diana Ross, Jerry Rice, Jack Nicholson, June Reed, Tom Pateri, Mike Dillard, Charles Bronson, Henley Winkler, Muhammad Ali, Billy Blanks, Sylvester Stallone, El DeBarge, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Benny the Jet, Jean-Claude Van Damme, legendary Dr. J, and world-famous Tony Robbins. Movies and what we all ended up becoming was all about the demonstrations, and really Quantum Tony was there doing a lot of stunts. And it all had to start somewhere, right? From our martial arts theater days, right? Of you wearing the horns and doing that. You remember that? And on top of it, not only that, you forgot to take off your socks. So you were in there with your wardrobe, but you still had your socks on.
We all had to do whatever it took, whatever's necessary to make sure that West Coast and the association got over the hump. We had to do it, whether it was finance, whether it was breaking your back to get something moved. We made sure that it was done because we really truly believed in what we was doing. That was the traditional way of making sure that family's always taken care of, and Quantum Ernie and his family is family. So I didn't have a choice. That's what our parents taught us, was ethics.
So here we are, 40 years later. So I'm Quantum Tony Sr., and I'm his instructor. So you forgot to take off your socks, right? So sometimes when he's zooming, he's got his top on, but he doesn't have his pants on. Now, I'm watching every little thing. But let's give some love to Quantum Tony, everybody. Century Martial Arts was our West Coast demo team sponsor. We even did a Chuck Norris Kicking Jeans commercial.
Chuck Norris Kicking Jeans not only look good, but when you're out on the town for an evening's entertainment, you feel good wearing them. You get into a tight spot, Chuck Norris Kicking Jeans can get you out of it. So remember, Chuck Norris Kicking Jeans.
They not only look good, but they come in handy.